Well, I don't know what he's up to. He's picking me like chicken, shucking me like corn, stewing me like an ice.
Can I ask you something?
Honey, come on. The man's trying to get some rest.
No, that's okay. Go ahead, ask away.
I just got to know the Kennedy assassination. Did Oswald act alone?
Hey, that's for me to know.
I like your hair in the middle with the silver hair. How old are you? 75. Get the fuck out of here. Who killed JFK? I'm not going to read all those pages. Who do you think killed him? You think the government killed him? Ooh.
Now, the disruptor-in-chief, Elon Musk, who apparently has adopted the alias, at least he changed his social media handle to Harry Balls, tweeted this morning, "Democracy in America is being..."
Yo, it's your boy, the Tesla King, Elon Musk. The boys always make my rocket shoot straight up, no homo. You bout to listen to the #1 JFK-related podcast on planet Mars. Now plug in your neural link for two numbnuts who aren't a waste of government spending, the BBB and JOEB.
Here's the BBB&JOEB, and the BBB, baby, BBB&JOEB, rock, cock, and Joe rally. BBB&JOEB, and the BBB, baby, BBB&JOEB, rock, cock, and Joe rally. We're coming in, only seeking the truth about JFK. Here's the Long Coming Podcast crew. Tell 'em, Joe, here we go.
And here we go.
That is correct. What is up, everybody? Welcome into the show. Happy Friday to everyone. We're about to kick off the weekend just right for you after a long, hard day of working. It's time to sit back, relax, unwind, and listen to your boys talk about some cameras tonight. What's up, Joe? How are you doing, sir?
I am good. I am refreshed after a nice
You look
vacation.
clean, fresh shaven, and
Yeah.
you look like you smell good.
I do. If I say so myself.
Okay.
For myself. No, I had a good weekend. Had a good time off last weekend. Went up to Cape Cod. As some of the members will know, on Wednesday I went over my visit to Hyannisport Museum, JFK Museum.
Yes, hyenas. Yeah.
Hyannis and Hyannis, and it was really interesting, like small museum, but really cool. And played some golf. The girlfriend played some tennis, and I was listening. You know, I gave some memberships in the beginning of last week.
Yes.
It's like I think I told you off air. It's interesting tuning into your own podcast to hear what was said.
Yeah. I wouldn't know anything about it. You know, contrary to popular belief, I do sometimes go back and listen. Most of the time, I don't. So once your boy's done, I'm usually done.
Yeah.
I always download my own podcast, of course, because that helps.
Yes.
Even a minuscule little bit. You know, one more never hurt nobody. But I normally end up just deleting them before I even listen to them, just because I was there in my mind. I know what it was about, but
Yeah.
sometimes it is nice to go back and revisit old shows and see what the hell's going on and listen to yourself talk. It's like, this is not strange at all.
Yeah. My girlfriend always says I'm too hard on myself on the re-listen, which I probably am. It's tough listening to yourself. It is.
Yeah. I'm never really uber critical of much just because I've been through a lot.
Right.
Like this is heaven compared to what things used to be like. You know, when you used to have to do an interview, you know, on a second phone, on Wi-Fi, on speaker, and recording it into another device, and it's just insane.
In your car at some points. Right?
Yeah, you know, you got real music going on. I got birds chirping in the background, and you know, it's a lot of changes through the years, and a lot of them for the better. You know, but we're still here.
We are, and improving every episode. At least we try.
Well, some of us. All right, Joe, let's welcome in some of our lovely, faithful subscribers, shall we? And like Joe was saying, we had a really good Wednesday show for members. And I will tell you, there's one coming up next week. You're not going to want to miss it because it's a good one. It's all about New Orleans, most of it anyway. So let's welcome in some of the folks. And we made it real easy. We made it real easy for you. There's a link in the description of this video if you'd like to become a channel member and check out our stuff. It's Covert Operators and Hire. Get a free show every week on Wednesday nights, plus access to the whole backlog of Wednesday night shows for the past 7 months.
I can't believe it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So if you'd like to be joining us on Wednesdays and checking out a whole bunch of new shows, it's real easy. The link's in the description.
Yeah.
Bobby Thundernuts. This is the way I want to start off every show. Bobby, I want you in line first every show. Welcome, Mr. Thundernuts.
Yes.
Alpha 66, Big Mike is in the house. What's up, Big Mike?
All right.
Sally. Hello, Sally. From across the pond. I'm glad you are back. Rocket Queen Colleen. Oh, hello, Colleen. Good to see you here on a Friday night.
Yes.
All right. Let's see who else we got up in here. Paul. Missed you last week, buddy. And welcome back. Southwest is up in here. Yep. Scott. Hello, Scott.
Scott.
Lee Ralph up in the house.
Yes, hey Lee.
Bloody Benders. Let's see. Double B is up in the house.
Oh, the Double B. What's up, buddy?
It ain't a show without the triple B and the double B.
Yes. And the single B.
We just need a single B.
Hey, Joe B is the single B.
Or just a guy with one name. Like Bobby with no last name or something like that.
Yes.
Sir Shot a Lot.
Sir. Yes. Hey, sir. He said, hey, triple B and the Joe B. Yes.
John.
And of course, always. Good evening, John. Thank you as always, sir.
George. That's right. Thank you, John. Mucho obligado. Paul, PSV Odyssey up in the house. What's up, Paul? Jack. Good to see you up in here. We know you're busy, or you've been busy.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor, yes.
James Smith up in the house. The man with the average name.
Yes.
Could have been a spy.
Yes. With his cerveza and his Minox, which
yeah. Hey, that's a good combo.
It is.
Tiny Dancer's up in here 4 minutes late, but she's here. Welcome, welcome.
She's here.
Ashley is up in the house. What's up, Ashley?
Oh, hey, Ashley.
Randall Brooks up in the house. Back again. Good to have you back. I love seeing these returning new names.
I do too. Love it.
Peaches is up in the house. What's up, Peach Sister's Kitchen? Turret Horse. I ain't seen you in a while. Welcome back, sir.
Ooh.
Or madam. Whichever horse you may be. Or you may be a gelding. Who knows?
Who do you think Turin Horse had on the Kentucky Derby last weekend?
You're asking the wrong dude.
He'll have to let us know.
That is one thing I don't follow. Okay. I think that's everybody.
So far, yeah.
Checked in. There's 35 of you up in here, and that's all good.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. Well, we told everybody this past Wednesday what we're going to be talking about. And I was going to do this topic a couple weeks ago and never got around to it. That the show we were doing was just one of those really long shows and just didn't want to squeeze it. Didn't have time to squeeze it in.
Yeah. When I checked back and I was like, bro, this guy went 2+ hours. I think it was like 2:11 or maybe more. Without me, damn, he was yapping like 6 barbers.
You know, I all kinds of bullets in the gun. You know, I was going to do the Geno Farkas thing here, but there's really no way for you to supplement that story whatsoever. It's such an oddball, one-off freaking story. So I did that at Quick Hits this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wild. So this has been sitting here for a while. I was going to do something about Marina on Quick Hits, but I saved it for here. Maybe did it last Wednesday. I can't remember. It's all just a blur now.
Yeah, I know. But quickly, and I told you this, and I told the members this. I thought it was fascinating because I had never heard of the Campbell brothers. I think Al and Dave, who were in Oswald's orphanage, that were interviewed by Garrison. The whole alleged Oswald October '62 arrest with Celso Hernandez, who of course was later involved in the fracas. We touched on. I added on some about the Oswald New Orleans interrogation. On members only. I thought it was fascinating. And yeah.
Get on him, Lee. Tell him.
Yes, hit the like.
Thumbs up button. Come on, people.
Yes, helps us defeat the algo. Yes.
Yes.
But fire show, man, for sure.
Now I forgot all about that, Sally. Thank you for bringing the emailers we get on that show. I tell you what. Okay. So tonight is a subject that I really never thought a lot about. Of course, known about it for a long time because of all the lookings into the Beckley address and, of course, the Payne's garage and all of Oswald's shit. It was in both places, right? So I wanted to, and I apologize if I throw the wrong pictures up here. Okay. This is a picture put together by the Dallas Police Department of all the crap that Lee Harvey Oswald had at Beckley. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, there is no official, well, I mean, there is an inventory list, but there is no cameras on the list. Although there are some items here that look like they could be camera cases. Not 100% sure. And the list, now this is from Beckley. This is a list of the inventory stuff, like I said, taken from Beckley. And this is dated 11/23/63 after they got the search warrant. And they went back and they took a whole bunch of stuff. So they got 3 pages of stuff, right? And what was interesting to me is down here towards the bottom, second to last thing, or actually it's the last thing, a pair of binoculars with a brown imitation alligator leather case.
Okay.
So he had a pair of binoculars at Beckley, and he had 2 pairs of binoculars. Actually, no, 3 pairs of binoculars in Ruth Payne's garage. So dude had 4 pairs of binoculars. Now, the reason I bring this up is because, of course, they're kind of on the same level as camera. They're optics. They are, something used to surveil or spy on someone with, or look through somebody's window with. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe to peek and see if General Walker is sitting in his window. I don't know. But so I'm looking through this and I'm looking over it and I'm reading through this stuff, and I see at the very, very bottom that Special Agent Warren DeBreeze, that's from the FBI, was personally there overseeing this DPD executed search warrant at Beckley.
Yes.
Now, of course, Warren DeBreeze was allegedly Oswald's handler in New Orleans, who once Lee Harvey Oswald is captured in Dallas, they hurry up and they send Warren DeBreeze to Dallas relatively quickly. Now, in my mind, there can only be one reason for this, because he knows Lee Harvey Oswald.
He's probably in charge of the file, or so, in the least.
Yeah, or Oswald was one of his informants or something.
Right.
Because, the FBI was in every major city across the United States. I mean, there's lots of closer places to send agents from to help out than New Orleans.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was an FBI office in Houston.
Mm-hmm. And we know there was one in Dallas. We know Hosty was very familiar with the Oswalds.
Right.
So you have to wonder, why send for DeBreeze either that Friday night or that Saturday morning? And the only thing that comes to my mind is I don't think he liked Hosty and maybe had a better relationship with DeBreeze.
Right.
Or DeBreeze was more familiar with whatever was going on with Oswald. But that's exactly what I noticed. And I hadn't seen that before you pulled it up. Exact thing I noticed. And I looked at the date. It said 11/23. It did not tell the time of the search, but I'm guessing it was probably pretty early.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because at the same day, there was actually another search warrant executed at Ruth Payne's. Like, I'm pretty sure it was on the 22nd. And we'll get into it more here in a little bit with Officer Gus Rose and Stovall and a damn chick and what they were doing over at Ruth Payne's house. But they searched, and again, I don't know what the legalities are of, illegal searches in 1963 without a search warrant. I mean, it's Miss Payne's house, right? It's Ruth Payne's house. She gave them permission to search through whatever they wanted to, right?
Yeah. So
they didn't technically need a search warrant.
Yeah. Didn't she say something like, "I've been expecting you" or something?
Yeah. Yeah. And Michael Payne also shows up in the middle of them executing the search warrant on, or not executing the search warrant. He shows up on the 22nd as well. And they're searching the garage then. I just don't think, they did catalog and take some things Friday, but they also went back Saturday and got more stuff.
They didn't have the warrant until Saturday, maybe?
Right. They didn't have a search warrant until Saturday, yeah.
Right.
But they did take some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to see if this is the right picture. If it's not, no, that's not it. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay. By the way, Scott says he doesn't seem like a flip-flops kind of guy. And that is referring to that picture you just showed at Beckley, that white sandals that I looked at. And I was like, is that a man's sandals in the 60s? And I just had to do a double take, but I noticed the same thing. So
yeah,
I'm not sure. He doesn't seem like a flip-top flops type of guy at all, Oswald. Not at all.
Neither does Joe.
Oh, you would be wrong there, sir.
Oh, you're a flip-flop guy.
Yes.
Your big, very Italian toes flying.
Not like a flip-flop guy, but I go outside, I walk rudely, I have my flip-flops on, yeah. So not like those though. Like Oswald.
No. All right, so this is a picture of all the crap that they pulled out of Ruth Payne's garage.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see here, there is quite in the bottom right corner. Here, we got 2 pairs of I call them spy binoculars.
Mm-hmm.
They're very compact. They're foldable. And I believe they were 10 or 25 times, what they would magnify. But
Right.
anyway, so you have 2 pairs of binoculars.
Which
now,
makes 3 so far total. Right. With the one at Beckley. Right. Okay.
Yeah. And there's one pair of larger binoculars that I could not find pictured anywhere, but it is listed in the in here, and it might be in this big ass case over here on the left. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Underneath my microphone, I don't know. But to the left of the binoculars, you'll see. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. I mean, I can, but that is the Minox light meter right there to the left of the binoculars there at the bottom right corner. That is a Minox light meter.
Yeah. Bottom right corner of the sign, if you will, the handwritten sign. Yeah.
So this is what they tried to say that Lee Harvey Oswald had. Oh, no, it wasn't a Minox camera. It was just a light meter. But we'll get into that here in a minute because it gets confusing. So here is what a light meter on the left is, and the actual camera is on the right. There is a somewhat size differential. The light meter is very small. I mean, the camera is very small as well, but the light meter is even smaller.
Okay.
So that is both of those. So now back to this mess here. So if you go to the sign right in the middle and you go straight up from the sign, you'll see these little.
Which, by the way, reads voluntarily given Dallas PD by Ruth Payne plus Mrs. Oswald, Payne's residence, Irving, Texas, 11/22/63.
Yes. So you'll see these little black cards that has Michael Payne's name on them and Ruth Payne. Well, right to the immediate left of those, there's another black leather case that is cracked in the middle, much like the light meter is cracked in the middle, much like it has like a flip top, much like a Zippo lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is a Minox camera case, 100%. Because if you zoom in on it, the Minox camera itself has a cord on the back side of it, and it actually fishes through the end of the leather case, right? If you can fit it all in there, if you want to leave it in the case, because technically you kind of peel the case back and take a picture, so you didn't have to take the entire case off the camera to take a picture. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And some people say that the little wire on the end of it helped you figure out the perfect distance from the object that you want to take a picture of, right? So that is the case. And from the blow up here that I'm going to show you here in a second, you can tell that the case is empty. Okay, which a lot of people have a problem with. Now, also found with the Minox camera and other things is a pedometer, which counts your steps. Okay. Now, back then, that was used to determine the amount of feet you were away from a, quote, target, if you will.
So he wasn't worried about getting his 10,000 steps in a day.
No. He was swishing around just fine, Joe, without a pedometer. Okay. But he had one. He also had a camera in the top I believe that's it up in the top left corner that he got while he was in Russia. A little better picture of that one is here. It was called the Smyrna 2, Joe. Looks just like your average, shitty camera back in the early 60s. Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so back to this mess. I believe that this case at the top is also a container for a camera.
Is that to the right of that little booklet there? It seems to be some.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a date book or calendar, journal, whatever it is.
Yeah, and again, this case at the bottom, it could be another camera case. I mean, it could definitely be another camera case on the bottom left. It's very hard to tell.
Yeah. Maybe possibly a case to hold one of the 4 or 3 binoculars.
Now I think about it, I think the thing under the case is the other binoculars.
Oh.
Because they were described as a larger version, and that could be them.
Which, of course, why need even 1 or 2 binoculars? Why have 4? It's very
right. Curious. Now, a lot of this other stuff up here in the top right corner you'll see is film cases, slides. You'll see a attachment for it's an Ansco flash attachment for a camera.
Right, like lighting.
Yeah, and all these boxes. That's all slides.
Yeah, it looks like ammo almost, but
like Kodachrome slides. Now from there, let's see if we can go to this blown up picture, if I can find it. Okay. This blown up picture of the one I just showed you of the Minox case, you can definitely tell it's empty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's been a big debate online about, okay, Oswald never had a Minox camera. It was Michael Payne's, right?
Yeah, I've heard this. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, and everybody's like, well, there's, the Minox camera is missing from the picture. Actually, Joe, I believe, and this is just little old me, that the camera itself, the Minox camera, is underneath the case. Because if you look at the very end of it, right, you can see that the case is resting on something silver. It's not on the floor. It's resting on something silver. You see what I'm saying? Like you can see the end of it.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
Yeah. So I think the camera is under there. Now I'm not 100% sure, but I'm 99.9% sure that that's the case, because you can see that little silver cord on the floor.
Yeah,
that's right above where it says Michael Payne.
Yeah.
That is attached to the camera, right? And you fished it through the bottom of the case. You see where the silver button is on the bottom of the case?
Yes.
Well, you could feed this silver wire through the bottom when the camera was in the case. But when it's taken out of the case, I don't know. That's just me. I may have solved the mystery. I don't know. But anyway, I wanted to point out something while we're here. These little photographic negative templates that Oswald was making for people. For whatever reason, I don't know. But the one that says Michael Payne, Irving, Texas, the one underneath of it says Ruth Payne.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it says Irving, Texas on the bottom of it. it's a very weird thing he was doing, Joe. Check this out. So this is a bunch of other photographic negative stuff that they took out of the garage.
Mhm.
And on the top left, you can see where he made one that says Lee and Marina Oswald. And then right
Yes.
underneath that, it says George DeMorenshield. And then
Whoa,
another
wait,
one.
wait, hold on.
What?
I'm just looking for the George Marshall right under the Lee.
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah, and then right under that, there's another one for George DeMorenshield.
Oh, I just enlarged it. I see it. I'm sorry. Yes. Yep.
And then right there is another one under that one for Lee and Marina Oswald.
Yeah.
They made one for the Russian hammer and sickle.
Yeah.
Right
Next to George DeMorenshield.
Yeah, so I don't know what he was doing. I mean, he's definitely doing some photographic work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you look at the top right, Rob, you'll see the Marine logo, right? United States
Yeah.
Marine Corps, right? That obviously that famous logo of the Marines. I'm just looking in the middle. 3124 West 5th Street, Fort Worth, Texas. Is that where he moved in 62 when he came back and lived right in Fort Worth?
No, that's a combination of the address in Irving of Ruth Payne's house. And instead of having it in Irving, it's Fort Worth. Right?
Wow. Okay.
I'm pretty sure Ruth Payne lived at whatever you said, 5th Street in Irving, not Fort Worth.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
To me, this is like way early photoshopping things.
Very, yeah. And why the hell on the bottom does he have Office of Recorder of Births, Marriages, and Deaths? Almost like he's trying to like get a birth certificate or something, or print one or something.
Yeah, I wish we had the rest of this negative to see what it was, but that's where they cut the photo off at.
Wow,
them bastards. So you have all this interesting stuff, man, found in Lee Harvey Oswald's possessions. Now, not pictured outright in the mess, but probably in one of the cases was another camera. This was known as the Stereo Realist. And this is the one that may have been in one of the cases at the bottom. And it's a relatively small camera, as you know, as far as it's not being big and bulky and having, it was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
As far as being, the lens style.
Yeah.
Because, look at the lens layout on my phone.
That's true. Yeah.
You have 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then back to this one.
Yeah, and Rob, looking at this real quickly reminded me of what you said in the initial Beckley photograph about the brown alligator, I'm guessing alligator skin case, right?
Yeah.
That looks like an alligator skin camera, just looking at the left and the right, the brown.
Yeah, with a little leather strap.
Yeah, just something that came to me. I have no idea. But.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure like that flip up thing in the front was like a lens protector. You could flip it up and then flip it down.
Shutter almost, or
no, the shutter button's at the top, but
okay,
like you could flip that thing up and down and it would protect your lenses.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Sun, light. Yeah.
Now this is an interesting one because it wasn't found with any of Oswald's possessions. This was the Imperial Reflex camera, a box-type camera, one you would hold at your chest level and look down into the viewfinder to snap a picture. Now, supposedly Oswald bought this camera before he joined the Marine Corps, and he gave it to Robert before he left for the Marine Corps, I guess to hold on to for him. And he went into the Marine Corps, then he went to Russia, and then allegedly at some point Marina took the backyard photos with it. The problem with that, and there was a whole lot of problems with that, is that Robert Oswald still had this camera after the assassination. So I don't know when exactly he would have given it back to Oswald to take the backyard photos, and then why would Oswald give his brother back the camera? I think I read somewhere he allegedly gave it back to him to give to one of his nieces. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an old style shitty camera.
Right.
But so very interesting stuff there with all of this hullabaloo going on with all these different cameras, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And the work with the photo prints is interesting. You know, this kind of stuff that he was allegedly doing. Yeah, that was a close up. Okay. I also make sure I got all the pics in. I got all the pics.
Cool. I have a couple comments, Star Rob, if I may.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's see. NK. What was the manufacturer name of the binoculars and the specs? I'm not sure.
Couldn't tell you, bro. It was They didn't break it down like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if the FBI did any better, because all this shit was taken to Washington and re-inventoried for a third time by the FBI.
Yeah.
And the Minox. This is when the Minox camera disappeared off of the inventory list.
Yeah. This is funny, Rob. Sir shot a lot. First time seeing Triple B. I think he means on video here on YouTube. Always thought he was a brother.
Well, you know, I partially am. I am 3% from the African country of Chad in my ancestry.
Oh, yes. A gift from your kid, right? One of your sons?
No, I came before one of my sons.
No, a gift. The test.
Oh no, that was an X.
Oh, okay. Got it. But that is funny. He
Yes.
just has.
And
He's
lady,
a great.
you know which 3% is if you know what I'm saying.
He does have a great podcast voice. Optoeconomist, hello, sir. Search warrant for the pains was for the 23rd, not the 22nd. Not search items were specified. And yeah, I think that's why they wrote that letter that I read that said Paynes voluntarily let us photograph this, right, on the 22nd, because they know they didn't have a search warrant, and they were making up for that by, I don't know who wrote that piece of paper, but you know what I mean. I think they were hedging against that, that they didn't have a search warrant yet, Opto. James Smith, Minox was made in Germany.
Yep.
NK, hello. Jack Ruby also had himself a Minox camera. And David Arbuckle said, yep, he was filmed at an outdoor concert with his boyfriend, George Senator, using the Minox. This reminds me of that. I can't picture it, but that is 3 suspicious people if you count Michael Payne with 3 Minox cameras. What are the chances?
Yeah.
No.
Now, the Minox camera back in the early 60s or before, let me pop this up here, Joseph, real quick.
Sure.
All right, get that comment off there real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the Minox camera itself was approximately $200 back then. So, Joe, for inflation,
at least $2,000.
At least $2,000. Now, here's a better picture. You can see the case. You can see the cord. You can see the camera. You can also see this roll of film here in the bottom right corner. $11 for one roll of film.
Over $100. Not cheap. Especially for Oswald, who we know is very frugal.
Over here for these flash bulbs, What's the price on that? $15?
150. Wow.
I mean, so you had to have some money to have a Minox camera. And I don't know, you know, I mean, that's a lot of money.
Thousands of dollars.
Now, they did sell them commercially. Like, you know, you could buy one. Anybody could buy one. But they were very expensive. Very expensive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It doesn't line up for what Oswald.
Yeah. For a roll of 36, it's, you know, $11. That's like $110 just for film.
Yeah.
God knows how much to get it developed.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Do you develop this little teeny tiny film?
Yeah. No, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And one last comment I had, Alpha 66 wine Alex Harris up here with y'all. He knows a bit about cameras. We'll get there, I promise. I consulted him prior to
He's here with us in spirit, Mike.
Yes. We'll get there. We promise, Mike.
That's right. All right. So, God, was it about 8 years ago or so? Maybe 10? I don't know. You shut them damn dogs up, Joe. Some friends of mine, Trish Fleming, and Zach Gendro, briefly did a blog, and they kind of looked into some of Oswald's cameras and what he was doing. I'm going to read a little bit from their blog. Lee Oswald worked at a graphic arts company based in Dallas. It was Jagger's Child Stovall. On the surface, he seemed to have worked on basic commercial jobs, according to owner Robert Stovall, learning the simple photo print process. Indeed, time cards of Oswald's activities at the company presented at the Warrant Commission showed that he was working on accounts for clients such as Sears, the Dallas Civic Opera, and the Sam Bloom Agency. Now, the Sam Bloom owned a large advertising agency based in Dallas, and coincidentally, Bloom played a large role in the planning of activities of Kennedy's tragic visit to Dallas. Also included within the inventory of Oswald's items were several envelopes labeled negatives, which contained some of the type of work that Oswald was evidently conducting at Jagger's Child Stovall. These items include photographic print copies of documents, as well as some typesetting, using various typefaces, printing out the names Lee and Marina, Oswald, George de Mohrenschildt in different fonts, which we showed a picture of. Also in Oswald's address book found at the Payne residence, not the one at Beckley, is a notation for Jagger Child Stovall. And it says typography. And then it says 522 Browder, Rhode Island, 15501. And right under that is two words, microdots. Now, microdots are part of a technique used to print text or images on a very, very small area. Originally developed as a parlor trick, microdots became essential tools of the spycraft trade. These tiny images could be embedded on an envelope or postcard, under seams, or hidden inside of cufflinks or under stamps. Reading them required special magnifying viewers, and often these two were cleverly concealed in a cigarette or a fountain pen, which is interesting. So Oswald knew about microdotting, which is reducing images to a very, very small, like, the size of a hit of acid, basically.
Yeah. No, for sure. And you think of, I know some of the earliest spy techniques back in the Revolutionary War was invisible ink, right? When George Washington had a spy ring, it was based off of Long Island, New York.
I know. I watched National Treasure, Joe.
But I mean, you're taking a magnifying glass and
and lemon juice and heat.
Yeah, and you're enhancing it, dozens or hundreds of times to reveal a message, right? It's a type of spycraft, if you will.
Yeah, but to reduce an image down to the size of a hit of acid,
you have to have the technology to do so.
Yeah, you have to know how to do that without screwing everything all up.
Yes.
I'm sure it's not easy. Also in his address book is a rough but capable hand-drawn street map of Moscow. So we have Lee involved with the clandestine operations of Jagger Charles Stovall. In his testimony to the Warren Commission, Stovall categorically denied any such activities by Oswald, but when Oswald's military training, his confidential security clearance as a Marine, his talents with maps and charts are considered, the possibility cannot be completely eliminated. And when Oswald applied for assistance at the Louisiana Labor Department in April of '63, among the experiences listed were commercial photographer, darkroom man, and he stated his skills with a photo enlarger and large still modification camera, the type of camera used at Jagger Charles Stovall to photograph maps. An understanding of Oswald's interest and experiences with photography is very helpful when analyzing the photographic and optical equipment found at the Payne residence. I would agree. The Soviet camera described as the Quadar 2, it's actually called the Smyrna 2, is a 35 millimeter camera lens model with a Bakelite plastic body, obviously purchased in the Soviet Union. The second was a stereo realist camera. That was the one with 3 lenses. Boom, boom, boom. Right?
Yeah.
It was a popular type of camera that could take stereo or 3-dimensional photographs. This was allegedly owned by Ruth and Michael Payne. So says Ruth later on, because they thought that possibly this stereo realist camera was the one used to take the backyard photographs. But Ruth stepped in and said, "Oh, no. That's Michael's camera."
The one with the 3 lenses.
Right. Allegedly.
We'll
get there, I promise. However, numerous inventories kept by the Dallas police list a third camera, variously referred to as a Minox camera or a small German camera and black case on chain. 4 rolls of film for this camera were also recovered. So you do the math. How much is 4 rolls of film? Almost $500.
Yeah.
Plus there was one in it. There's $500.
$5,000 today. Right?
No, 500 today.
Okay.
Roughly. Because they were $11 a roll. So 110 today bucks.
Gotcha.
Come on. You're the money man. You're the fintech guru.
I'm just making sure the audience is staying up to date.
It was a camera smaller than a cigar and weighing less than a cigarette lighter, and it had an excellent lens, and it was a stroke of lasting genius. Originally envisioned as a luxury item, the original Minox camera gained a camera. Accurate photographs of documents, and its small size meant that it could be easily concealed. Although it was available on the open market, it was admittedly an expensive item, certainly out of Lee Oswald's price range. So what was a Minox camera doing in the Payne residence? And does the presence of this camera mean that Lee or Ruth and Michael Payne were potentially doing spy work? Well, here's the problem with the Minox camera. And actually, James Hosty claimed to have used a Minox camera to photograph the physical evidence from this case. in Dallas on November the 25th after it was returned from the FBI Washington, D.C. office and before it was returned to the Dallas Police Department. So now you have James Hosty having a Minox camera. Can't make this shit up. There's a whole lot of Minoxing going on. By January 30th, according to the FBI, there was never a Minox camera at the Payne home. And that same day, Ruth Payne stepped forward to claim ownership of a Minox on behalf of her husband. A Minox camera with serial number 27259 was turned into the FBI by Michael Payne on January 31st and returned to him shortly thereafter. However, according to researcher John Armstrong, who you may know from Harvey and Lee and all that good stuff, another Minox camera is still housed at the National Archives, but has been altered to prevent its serial number from being retrieved. Michael Payne claimed his Minox was stolen from his home years later, so a direct comparison cannot be made. However, research has proven that these cameras are more than likely two different models. Duh. Now we'll get into AJ Weberman here in a second. Other items retrieved from the Payne home included an ANSCO camera flash assembly, which we saw in the picture of the jumbled stuff, several negatives and rolls of films, 9 boxes of Kodaslide transparent slides, a booklet with instructions on how to develop film, various lenses, filters for the stereo realist camera, a Sears automatic tower slide projector, 2 stereo towers, a pair of binoculars, a telescope, and numerous photographs. So not only did he have all these binoculars, he had a telescope. He had which sounds very expensive, a Sears automatic tower slide projector, 2 stereo viewers. It's a lot of stuff. Yeah. One important piece of evidence that was not present during the initial searches of the property, but turned up at a later date, was the Imperial Reflex Duo Lens camera. The inexpensive gray metal body camera was proven by the FBI expert Lyndall Schoenfeld to have taken the infamous backyard photos, which featured Lee Oswald holding his guns, seemingly the same guns used to commit his notorious crimes. One of these photos, purportedly taken by Marina Oswald outside their Neely Street apartment in Dallas, was featured on the cover of Life magazine and influenced public opinion about Oswald's guilt. It stated the photographs and their negatives were found at the Payne residence on the 22nd, but according to detectives present, the camera that took the pictures was nowhere to be found. Now, of course, Marina doesn't remember. I mean, she was shown all these different cameras. I said, which one did you take the backyard photo with? I can't remember. I don't know. They're all camera, just a camera. They all look the same to me, despite them all looking the same. Right? Now, on February 19th, Ruth Payne relayed to the FBI that Robert Oswald picked up the last remaining items at their home after the assassination, later verified to have been on December 8th. So allegedly, Robert Oswald on December 8th swung by Ruth Payne's house to pick up the rest of Lee Oswald's shit that apparently the cops didn't take. And on February 24th of 64, Robert Oswald was contacted by investigators, whereby he surrendered possession of the Imperial Reflex dual lens camera that was somehow left behind by the DPD, the Irving police, and the FBI, and 3 searches. They somehow missed this gigantic, shitty box camera. Mm-hmm. He said that his brother had purchased the camera before he went to the Marines in 1957, leaving it in Fort Worth with Robert when he left for the Soviet Union. As quoted elsewhere, Robert Oswald, alone felt the items were of no evidentiary value and held on to them. That explanation was good enough for the FBI and the Warren Commission, And seemingly no investigative body was concerned that Robert under Secret Service scrutiny was under Secret Service scrutiny when he retrieved the camera from the Paynes, and everybody neglected to mention this potential evidence to anyone for 3 months. So, yeah. So that's some good work there by Zach and Trish from back in the day.
Yeah. So is that how he could have got the camera back if Lee gave that camera to Robert when he went overseas and then got it back, and then Robert took it back once?
That's the thing, Joe. It's very murky.
Yeah. I'm trying to get it straight. Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck to me, right?
Because it's confusing as hell.
Yeah. Yeah. And Scott has a great point. What camera took the Walker photos? And of course, the photos behind Walker's house, I think, in that alleyway. And optoeconomists, I think, might have the answer. I certainly don't. The FBI said the Walker images had the markings of the Imperial reflex camera.
Yeah. Same as the backyard photos, apparently.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. Michael Payne's Minox camera, if you will, that was turned over to the FBI by Ruth later in January or February, right? Because the FBI pretty much laid out these instructions: go find the damn Minox camera. And Ruth was like, oh, well, Michael has one. It's out in the garage. It's in a coffee can. Apparently, he dropped it into some seawater when they were on vacation. And he cleaned it with kerosene for some reason.
Kerosene, not rice, isn't it?
I don't know. Interestingly enough, kerosene will get fingerprints off of things.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so Ruth Payne turned Michael's Minox over to the FBI, and then they gave it back like a week later and said, okay, thanks. Mystery solved, folks. Nothing to see here. Right? There's a problem with that, though. There was a problem with that, though. Now, while searching the contents of Lee Oswald's sea bag, right, in the Payne's garage.
Right. That is the Marine duffel bag, right? In a sense.
Yeah. Detectives Gus Rose and Richard Stovall discovered a Minox camera. Opening the camera, Rose discovered that a roll of film was inside it and recorded it in his inventory of items taken from the Payne house. On November 26th, 2 days after Oswald was killed, Dallas police turned over the evidence to the FBI, who took charge of the investigation. Every piece of evidence was cataloged and signed for by FBI agent Warren DeBreeze. And one of the things clearly mentioned on here is one Minox camera, one pedometer, one compass, one Hansa self-timer, one lens in a hood, one 15-power telescope, one stereo viewer, one pocket knife and leather container, and so on and so forth. But you get the picture. They clearly put down there that a Minox camera was found, and Warren DeBreeze signed for it. However, the FBI contacted Rose and Stovall and informed them that there was no camera. It was just a Minox light meter. They pressured the detectives to change their inventory. Now, Gus Rose was interviewed for the HSCA, right, in 1978. And here's what he says. He says, quote, and I quote, "We found this camera. And of course, we brought it and a whole lot of other property in as possible evidence in the case. And while we were marking the evidence for later identification by us to be used in evidence, we did, Stovall and I, did take a close look at this Minox miniature camera. And it did have a roll of film in it. As time passed and after the Warren Commission was appointed, a couple of FBI agents made 3 different trips to our office to talk to me about this camera. They said that after they had received all of the property, they found that I had made a mistake and that really it wasn't a camera, it was just a light meter. However, as I told them at the time, I was pretty sure that I hadn't made a mistake. It definitely was a camera, and I definitely opened it, and it definitely did have film in it. However, they wanted me to change that in our property invoice to read Minox light meter and not read Minox camera. We never did change it, though, and Captain Fritz instructed me if I was sure I was right not to make any changes in any reports and to stay with what was right. So I didn't.
Wow. And you told the HSCA that.
Yeah. So right there, you have it straight from the horse's mouth that he was pressured by the FBI to change the inventory list. Because, Joe, if you have a regular lone nut assassin with a spy camera in his possessions that he couldn't afford, you got yourself a problem. Because then you have to explain where in the hell he got it.
And
right?
What was he doing with it?
Right. Right. So when that didn't work, they flipped the narrative to, oh, it's just Michael Payne's Minox camera.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yet, clearly right here, he states it's found in Oswald's sea bag. Not laying not in a coffee can in Michael Payne's garage.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, if you have the shit, it's found in Oswald's possessions. Unless you have Oswald on one of his trips over to the Payne house, sneaking around in the garage and stealing Michael Payne's shit and shoving it in his sea bag, which I don't see happening.
No.
Right? Because you think Ruth was there when she gave permission for them to search the garage. She stood right there the whole time. And if they started pulling out some of her husband's shit out of Oswald's sea bag, she probably would have made a big old stink about it. Like, why is my Ansco flash tower in his bag? Why is Michael's Minox camera in his bag? Oh, he was stealing shit from us. Not only was he jerk, he's a thief. But you never heard that come out of Ruth Payne's mouth. And yet she stood there the whole time that the detectives searched her garage and never said a thing about any of that stuff being her husband's. And not only that, but Michael Payne showed up at the house in the middle of them searching. And you'll see here in a second, he didn't knock. He just came, walk right on in like he owned the place. What are you doing? Oh, we're searching around here for Oswald's shit. Oh, okay. Well, if it was my house or it had been my house and some of my shit's in the garage, I'm going to be making sure that the police don't take it. Right? I'm going to say, no, that's mine. You know, that's not Oswald's. That's my shit. Let me see what y'all got here. All right. Just make sure you don't take none of my stuff.
Well, maybe that's why he showed up in the first place.
Well, that's not what he said, why he showed up.
Right. But who knows why? But sus that he showed up in the middle of it for sure.
Well, he says why, but we'll get there.
Okay.
So several weeks after the assassination, the FBI contacted the Dallas Police Property Manager, H.W. Hill, who compiled with their request and made the notation on the property invoice. It is that altered copy that appears in the Warren Commission exhibits. That's why you have the Minox camera disappearing off of the list and the Minox light meter appearing on the list that the Warren Commission has. You won't find the original in the Warren Commission report, the one that says Minox camera. See how that works, Joe?
Yes. Yeah.
Dallas Assistant District Attorney William Alexander also confirmed the existence of a Minox camera found in Oswald's sea bag. The FBI denied the existence of a very small pocket Minox camera found among Oswald's belongings. And this comes from Larry Sneed's book, No More Silence. We picked up, and this is from William Alexander. we picked up a Minox camera that had some film in it and turned it over to the FBI. Despite their denials, claiming it was a light meter, I examined it, and I know a camera when I see one. It had film in it. We had the Minox camera, and that was all there was to it. In those days, a Minox camera cost probably around $200. What inference can be drawn from it? Who knows? Unless he has an intelligence buff, or unless he was an intelligence buff and had bought it through a PX, obviously it leads to speculation about his being involved in some kind of intelligence work. And this is coming from the Dallas Assistant DA William Alexander.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Real quickly, Rob. Roberta Glass from True Crime Report says, "Hi, Rob."
Hello, Roberta.
And
I hope you're doing well. Welcome in. Welcome in. Thank you for taking the time to check in here.
Yep. And Sally also said, I'm sorry, Rob. She read that a researcher, she can't remember who, went to look at the camera. He said he could tell something was in it. However, it was sealed shut. He definitely said it was not the main Minox. And James's next comment was, yeah, I think it was welded. As in,
what John Armstrong said was that it had been like cemented shut or super glued shut, for what it's worth. And the serial number was not legible on it. Now, there is a very interesting education forum tale that Doug had turned me on to before and told me to check it out. And I found the comment that, interestingly enough, the Minox camera that Oswald had, the serial number matches. It was originally Dick Billings from Life magazine. It was originally his Minox camera. It was given to Eddie Bayo before the Bay of Pigs, right?
Yeah.
And somehow Oswald ends up with it. Now, I don't know the provenance of this. This comes from Jerry Patrick Hemming in his later days. Okay.
Yeah. Sally said it a few minutes ago. Guys, do you believe what Hemming said about the Minox, Richard Billings of Life, Blakey's book, and HSCA, Eddie Bio, etc.? Sally's on it.
You are on it, Sally. Yes. There's a lot to unpack there. And we'll get into the AJ Weberman stuff here in a little bit, because as you know, he actually submitted a FOIA request in the 70s for NARA to develop the film that was found in the Minox camera. Okay. And he published a lot of these pictures in his book, The Oswald Code, which is where we get this one, who he allegedly says is Jerry Patrick Hemming here on the right. I don't know if they're alleging this is Lee Oswald to his immediate left, or if Oswald is the one they're pretending to choke. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
well, Hemming was extremely tall. So.
Yeah. And then there was this one in there, which is, you can definitely tell, it's taken overseas in some kind of Asian country.
A beach, right?
Yeah, it looks like they're on the beach, and then there's an ocean in the background, and you got, it's behind some kind of fence, like a barbed wire fence, and I don't know what's going on here, but now the problem with this allegation of it being Michael Payne, Michael Payne was in the Army, and he was also in Korea. Lee Oswald's in the Marines. You have him in Japan and the Philippines, right? So it's very hard to tell what's going on here. Now, some people have kind of analyzed this hat that this guy's wearing
on the right.
Yeah, on the right, and it appears to be some kind of army hat and not a Marine hat. But I would think the Marines had some kind of similar slouch cap, fatigue cap like that. You know, I don't know. It's very murky.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another one. And I believe he was saying this is Hemming on the right. That's Oswald right beside him. I don't know. I couldn't blow it up enough to make out whether it looks like Oswald or not. It's very indeterminable.
Right.
But interesting, nonetheless.
Very,
yeah. So there was a November 25th, 1963 memo. The day before the FBI officially took possession of the evidence, the FBI requested a comparison of the Minox film recovered from the possessions of Lee Harvey Oswald with another roll of Minox film designated Q5. Property report G11193 dated November 26 shows, quote, 2 rolls of apparently exposed Minox film. These 2 rolls of Minox film appear to belong to the Paynes and are photographs of a European vacation. The FBI did not take possession of these films until 11/26/63. Therefore, the film recovered from Oswald's possession on or before the 25th must be the roll of film recovered from the Minox camera found in Oswald's sea bag. The Minox film belonging to the Paynes was found in Minox containers that held 2 rolls of film. In the DPD evidence photo, a loose roll of Minox film can be seen by the case and name tags. The FBI returned the Minox case and name tags to Ruth Payne, but inexplicably, they were not part of the 26th November transfer to the FBI. I believe the FBI had taken possession of these items, as well as the light meter that was later substituted for a camera before the 25th of November. It is my opinion that the roll of film came from Oswald's camera and the film in the FBI lab compared to sample Q5. January 30th, 1964, Hoover sent a memorandum to Gordon Shanklin ordering an investigation into the matter of the missing Minox camera, the allegedly missing Minox camera. It's the
sorry, Rob, what was the date on that document?
January 30th, 1964.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But yet there was film and accessories that indicated that such a camera existed. That same day, Ruth Payne was contacted and informed the Dallas office that her husband did own a Minox camera, but it was no longer working. And according to a special report done by Bardwell Odom on January 31st, it says he, Payne, owns a Minox camera, and that camera is at his home in Irving, Texas. Several years ago, he dropped his camera in salt water off the coast of Cape Cod. And after retrieving it, soaking it in kerosene and cleaning it, it appeared to be in good working condition. Thereafter,
You should have told me, Rob. I could have looked for it this past week.
Yeah. Thereafter, someone bent the shutter by pulling the lens out too far. And to the best of his knowledge, it is not now in working condition. He stated that he did have some cans of film and that some of them were probably exposed, but the picture made on his films were at least 5 years old. He stated that he had a case for the camera and other accessories, including a light meter. He stated that when the police came to his house on November 22nd, they took the entire contents of a drawer containing photographic equipment of his.
Right.
With the exception of the camera. He stated that his camera was in his garage at that time, and that although he mentioned the camera to the police, they did not seem interested in this. He stated that he is sure Lee Harvey Oswald never used this camera, and he is of the opinion that it is not in working condition at the present time. Mr. Payne stated that he had no knowledge of a no admittance sign which was picked up by the police at his residence. He stated this sign is not his, and he had never seen it before. A Minox 3 camera, serial number 27259, was turned over to the FBI on January 31st, 1964, and given the designation of D80. This would be Michael Payne's. The inventory shows that the camera was acquired from Ruth Payne. However, Ruth Payne later stated she does not ever recall giving the camera to the FBI. Another FBI document, also dated January 31st, shows that the camera was given to the FBI by Michael Payne and not Ruth Payne.
Okay.
So what happened to the Payne Minox? Well, according to Michael Payne, the camera was returned to him shortly after the assassination and eventually stolen, along with his other photographic equipment, about 5 years after the assassination, allegedly.
Yeah, man, this screams to me in January of '64 as like tying up loose ends in this department, almost.
Yeah. Now, Marina, we'll get to Marina's HSCA testimony. She appeared before the House Select Committee, and she was shown 2 Minox cameras and asked if she had seen either one before. One of the cameras, which is a Model 3 with no serial number, came from the National Archives. The other Minox, described as a Model 1, had a serial number S2339303. This says the exhibit here, which is identified as FBI Exhibit D80, which we now know was Michael Payne's Minox. Does this look familiar to you? She says no. And this camera here, this Minox 1, with the serial number S2339303, does this look familiar to you? No. Did you ever see any of the cameras before you in the possession of Lee? I do not recall now a lot of the camera we used to have. The camera could be here, but I would not recognize it at all.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't remember?
The pictures you allegedly took in Neely Street, the camera you used allegedly in Russia, you don't have any idea?
If I show you this camera, which the commission in Exhibit 750, now this is the Imperial Reflex that took the backyard photos, allegedly, and raise the top part so you can see that there's a viewfinder and ask you to just look at the camera, would that refresh your recollection that this was the camera that you allegedly took the photographs of Lee with? Well, I honestly do not remember if I looked straight at an object or looked down at viewfinder.
Wait, Rob, are they asking her to look through the lens and ask if it refreshes her memory?
Yeah.
Okay, got
it. You know, look at the camera.
Right, but look into it, like physically.
Right.
Right, okay, got it.
So they say, but seeing the camera today, you still have no memory of what the camera looked like? No, I am sorry. I am unprofessional about camera. Whatever your memory is, that is what we want to find out. She says, I definitely never saw that before. Which are you referring to? Marina says, these 2 little ones. The record should note that she is referring to the Minox camera, which is D80, and the other Minox camera identified as Minox 1. And by that, I mean in my possession or Lee's possession. You never saw a camera like that. And Marina says no. After a break, they go back. Mr. Wolf returns to the subject of the 2 Minox cameras back on the record. We are going to take a lunch break. The current time is approximately 12:40. I would also like to state on the record that regarding the cameras that Mrs. Porter examined previously, concerning the 2 Minox cameras, there is no confusion on the record. The Minox, which was not part of the material in the National Archives and has serial number 2339303, is approximately 1.5 inches longer than the one which is currently in the National Archives. At this time, we will take a break for lunch. Blah, blah. So, the Minox 3 was referred to as Exhibit D80, which was the designation given to Michael Payne's Minox. But supposedly D80 had been returned to Payne, and by this time had been stolen, according to Michael Payne, by the time of the HSCA.
Yeah, I think he said 5 years after or something.
Right.
But definitely.
It was a burglary. Somebody broke into his house and took all of his camera equipment, including the Minox, which was returned to him a week later after it was either turned over to them by Michael or Ruth. Different reports say different things. So how could this be? Could it be that the Oswald Minox had become D80 once the Payne Minox had been released from evidence? That's certainly what it sounds like to me, Joe.
Yeah, very possibly.
Or else how in the hell would Nara have it?
I mean, unless they got back the stolen one from Payne somehow, right? I don't know. Yeah.
Either way, one thing for sure, there is a Minox 3 in the archive today, and according to Michael Payne, he was returned his Minox, and it was stolen approximately 5 years later.
Oh, so he got that Minox back after it was stolen after 5 years? No. Okay. I thought this is what you said. I'm sorry.
No, after Ruth or him allegedly gave it to the FBI in January of 1964, it was returned back to them like a week later.
Mm-hmm.
And then Payne says 5 years after that, it was stolen along with a bunch of other shit.
Right. It would have been the beginning of 1969-ish.
Yeah. Hence why the one in Nara could not be Michael Payne's. Unless they broke into his house and stole.
That's what I was saying. Did they somehow acquire the stolen?
Which I doubt.
Yes. Got it.
All right. Let the craziness ensue.
This is like the wallets, man.
Yeah. So here's the story. In February of 1999, John Armstrong, I asked John if he could determine what model Minox is in the archives because he had actually seen it and handled it with his own two eyes and his own two hands. And after consulting one of his photographs of the archives camera, he informed me that it was in fact a Model 3. The camera was housed in an ammo box and was identified as DL3, not D80. He then told me that when he handled the camera, it was far heavier than a Minox should be. When he tried to look inside the camera to check its serial number, he found that it had been filled with some substance that prohibited its being fully opened. Perhaps this explains why Mr. Wolf did not state the serial number of the Minox 3 when he showed it to Marina. Interesting. So this sounds a lot to me like, Joe, they had this Minox camera from Oswald, right? They pulled the film out of it. The serial number is inside the camera, but they like super glued the damn thing shut or filled it with something like a cement type thing, is what Armstrong referred to it as.
So they couldn't tell the difference based on the serial number.
Yeah, so nobody could check the serial number
to tell whose it was.
Right.
Got it.
Interesting.
Yes.
Since the serial number is located inside the Minox where the film is loaded, the FBI had to open the camera to determine that Payne's Minox was number 27259. Excuse me. And we know that Detective Rose opened the Minox he discovered in Oswald's sea bag, but it had a roll of film inside, so he could not see the serial number at the time, which makes sense. That seems to indicate that the camera in the archives had been sealed shut after the film had been removed and taken into evidence. However, a check of the Minox serial number showed the camera 27259 should be a Model 2 Minox and not a Model 3 that the FBI claimed they'd received from the Paynes. Model 2 serial numbers ranged from 20379 to 31500, while Model 3 serial numbers started with 31275 and ended with 58499. The Model 2, first manufactured in 1948, was never officially imported or sold in the United States to the public. Ever.
Wow. There was no Amazon back then, ladies and gentlemen. You could not just order this online.
Bardwell Odom's 13164 report states that Payne's Minox was not working at the time because, quote, someone bent the shutter by pulling the lens out too far, and to the best of his knowledge, it is not now in working condition. what is interesting about this description of the damage is that the lens cannot be pulled out since it is contained within the camera. But the rear element of the lens does move back and forth inside the film chamber as the film is advanced and the shutter is cocked. A technical note here, the rear element of the lens actually presses up against the film as the photo is taken. And when you advance the film by pulling the camera apart, the lens moves away from the film to allow it to move freely. One of the differences between a Minox 2 and a Minox 3 is actually the lens itself. The Model 2 had a 5-element lens, which sometimes caused scratches on the film because it extended a fraction too deep into the film chamber. Minox had replaced the lens on the Model 3 with a 4-element design, which did not extend quite as far into the film chamber, allowing the film to advance freely without scratches. Could this actually be the problem Michael Payne was describing to the FBI? If the lens jammed in the picture-taking position, it would conceivably prevent the advance mechanism from operating. This would be consistent with the damaged camera apparently in the archives. But if the camera in the archives is a Payne camera, and that camera was jammed shut when Michael Payne turned it over to the FBI in '64, then the serial number recorded on Odom's inventory is a fabrication. Keep in mind that the model number 27259 traces back to a Model 2 and not a Model 3 that is in the archives. Could it be that number 27259 was actually a Model 2 found among Oswald's possessions by Detective Rose? Right, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get to the A.J. Weberman.
Can I read a comment or two, sir?
Sure.
And actually, I want to thank Mr. Perpetual Concepts for his $10 super chat here. Wallets and Minox.
Woo!
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. PC
yeah.
coming through.
Yeah, for sure. And Sally said a little bit ago, Doug was talking about an FBI document last year on quick hits and didn't know what Q5 was in the doc, and it led me down the path to the Minox camera. Slacker Dan said, howdy dudes. Hello, Dan. How are you? James, the whole Minox camera thing is a real farkus. And Sir Shatalot had to go to work, but loves the show and is going to catch the last half next week, but we're hoping probably later tonight. So,
yeah, you don't have to wait till next week, bro.
Yeah,
you can catch it tomorrow.
Yeah, or during work.
Yeah.
So Weberman, what did he have to say?
According to Weberman, 2 rolls of Minox film that were taken with Michael Payne's Minox camera contained photos of a trip to Europe. The roll that was not taken with Michael Payne's camera seemed to have been photographed in either Quemoy or Matsu.
Well, photograph. Where is that?
Fuck if I know.
I don't know either. Sorry.
Never heard of either one.
I have no idea where that is. Okay.
Approximately 40 miles west of Atsugi in Japan. I don't know.
It has to be in Eastern Asia or Pacific or somewhere. But
yeah. The photographs depicted several Marines horsing around on a large military vessel. Shot of a tanker and LST-845P, whatever that is. Shots of an island from offshore, shots entering a harbor, young Asian children walking past a heavily fortified military base, a Chinese funeral passing the perimeter of the base, and a photo of Oswald with an M16. Now, obviously, a picture of Oswald with an M16 rifle is not going to be found on Michael Payne's Minox film.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Look at this. Our fucking chat. I love him. Optoeconomist. Islands off of China. MK. Taiwan Islands. James Smith. 2 islands north of Taiwan. Thank you. Thank you.
Killing it.
Yeah, we love our chat for sure. Thank you, guys.
Now, of course, Weberman alleged, Jerry Hemming was in some of these Minox photos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what Jerry Hemming said about it is that in January 1999, I received photocopies of the Minox photos from the National Archives. Each sheet of paper had one photo on it, except for one page. The main photo on that page appears to be one of the offshore photos that Weberman described with a couple Marines in the foreground. Included on that page are two additional photos showing a serviceman wearing the same kind of hat as one of the Marines in the main photo. Immediately, it struck me that the serviceman bore a resemblance to Jerry Patrick Hemming. The notion that Oswald might have taken photos of Hemming with his Minox while still overseas bore serious implications. After posting the photos on the JFK Research Forum, I heard from a well-respected researcher who suggested I contact Hemming, who had learned about the photos from Noel Twyman. Now, that wasn't what Hemming said. Here was what Hemming said. Sorry. He acknowledged that he was familiar with Minox photos of him, but that they were not taken by Oswald. He informed me that Howard K. Davis had a Minox and used it to take photos of their camps, and it was Davis who took the photos in question. They were not off the coast of some random fucking islands in Taiwan or whatever. They were at their training camp in Florida. And, a lot of them did wear their old fatigues to train in. So it may have looked like a military photo, right?
Yeah. And I think, Rob, you had a bunch of people, like some former Army, some former Marines that were joined together ideologically. So that hat that we were talking about earlier, I think someone said it was a Marine hat. I started the comment, but I lost it. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? Because it's a group of different people coming together.
Yeah. Howard Davis had a Minox and used it to take photos of their camps. And it was Davis who took the photos in question. And by the way, Howard K. Davis was an FBI informant. Me and Doug outed that shit a couple years ago, even though Doug refuses to say it in public. I will say it all day long. And yeah, he's still alive, apparently. Hemming told me that the Minox camera found in Oswald's sea bag originally came from life reporter Richard Dick Billings, who later authored the HSCA report and co-authored Robert Blakey's The Plot to Kill the President. Billings, who reported on the commando raids for Life magazine, gave the Minox to Hemming to photograph their various missions. Hemming, in turn, gave the camera to Eddie Bayo, who disappeared with 9 commandos while on a raid into Cuba. Hemming refused to speculate on how that Minox got from a dead Eddie Bayo on a raid to Cuba to Oswald. Because how can you speculate on that? I mean, who the hell knows? Hemming did speculate that the military photos were not taken overseas, but more likely they were photos taken during one of their Cuba missions. Hemming did claim that Oswald did possess a Minox when he was stationed at El Toro, and that he used it to take photos at the Cuban consulate in Monterey Park. Hemming said that he knows that Oswald did not take that camera to Russia, but he has no idea what happened to that camera. Interesting. So we've explored that.
James Smith said Oswald would have had an M1 in the Marines Garland rifle, not an M16. And while I agree, you can't rule out that he wanted to pose with one for some reason.
Yeah, either way, it doesn't matter what gun Oswald had in the picture.
Right.
The fact that he's in a picture developed from an undeveloped roll of Minox camera film that was at NARA that allegedly belonged to Michael Payne.
Yep.
Which cannot be.
Mm-hmm.
If it has a picture of Oswald in it, it had to come from one of Oswald's camera rolls.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, sir. Scott said Weberman has done some interesting things, but he is a nut.
He is a nut.
Dylan and Garbo Ligi. I said that wrong, but ironically, I might have talked to him somewhat recently, but we decided against it. Tune into members only for the details on that.
Yes.
Yes. Hey, Timothy Ryan, how are you, sir? Late as always. It's okay. Better late than never. And Paula Jane, how are you? And of course, one of our super spies, one of our most loyal listeners.
Nice.
Happy Friday, Paula. And Paula was in New York, Rob. She didn't hit me up. She didn't hit me up.
Well, she didn't have any change. She didn't have a change of clothes, so
I saw that. Isn't that the worst?
But I did like the John Lennon shirt.
Yeah. When you fly and they lose your luggage, there's nothing worse. So I hope they found it by now, Paula. I really do. And
so Earl Goals wrote an article in 1978 for the Dallas Morning News, I believe it was. And he tells the story of Weberman obtaining or the developed film from the Minox cameras, and he goes into the problems with the Minox camera, which is very interesting. Back in 1978, he says photographs developed from Minox spy camera film found among Lee Harvey Oswald's possessions have been released by the FBI after being suppressed for almost 15 years. About 25 images shot in foreign countries on 2 rolls from the miniature German-made camera were made available by the FBI under Freedom of Information Act request by Alan Weberman, an independent researcher from New York City. More than 20 prints developed from one roll show civilian scenes apparently in Europe. 5 shots from the other roll were military scenes in either the Far East or Central America or Florida. A Minox camera with a cassette film roll inside disappeared from Oswald's possession after the FBI took custody of the property in 1963. The Bureau later tried to unsuccessfully pressure police into changing their inventory list to read Minox light meter, not camera. And he tells the story of Gus Rose, who said he found the camera in Oswald's sea bag at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Payne. The FBI had indicated the 2 rolls it developed were found separately in tin containers with ribbons tied around them. But House Assassinations Committee investigators recently interviewed a former FBI agent who had custody of the Oswald property when the camera with film inside disappeared. The former agent, Warren DeBreeze, monitored Oswald's activities in the summer of '63. He came to Dallas for 2 months to assist the Warren Commission investigation of the assassination. He said he told the news, "Monitoring is a word I would be reluctant to use," says DeBreeze. "I never personally met Oswald, never knowingly personally talked to him, and I say that advisedly because who knows? I don't think it happened. He may have called on the phone and made an inquiry one time without identifying himself." You have DeBreeze still with the old song and dance that he didn't know Oswald.
That's a weird comment there.
Yeah. The Bureau cover letter to Weberman stated
that you were brought to Dallas for 2 months.
Yeah.
Not the weekend, Rob. 2 months. I did not know that until you just read it. Wow.
Yeah, the Bureau cover letter to Weberman stated that it had not withheld any of the photos insomuch as the material you requested is of great historical interest. 3 of the photos taken in a military environment in either the Far East or Central America or Florida were made from inside a barbed wire encampment showing civilians walking on the other side. Another shot was taken from a boat showing a tanker anchored offshore in mountainous terrain. Oswald was stationed in Japan as a Marine in 57 and 58, and during that time went on a tour of duty to Taiwan, the Philippines, Corregidor, and Indonesia. The Minox camera was invented in the late 1930s in Latvia and later manufactured at plants in Germany is about 3 inches long and 1 inch wide. That's what she said. It was used as a spy camera by both sides during World War II. So yeah, all this was it was out in the paper in 1978 in Dallas. Michael Payne told the news that he recalled taking photos in Korea while he was in the Army in the early 50s, and then later on a trip to Europe, but not with a Minox camera. He couldn't remember taking a photo of a tanker anchored offshore in mountainous terrain either, he said. Interesting, right?
Yeah, very, man. Very.
All right, Joe. I think that's everything with the cameras.
Okay.
Goddamn, here we are, an hour and 40 minutes in. Time flies when you are
having fun,
talking a whole bunch of crazy shit about the Minox camera and all of Oswald's crazy cameras. But the bottom line is, before we get to you, you know, Oswald had a shit ton of camera equipment. He referred to himself as a photographic expert, a photographer, interested in photography on several of his applications to jobs, to unemployment agencies. And we saw the kind of work that he was doing. So very interesting stuff.
Yeah, and they say Jaggers was his most consistent job.
Yeah, and where the fuck do you learn how to do this shit? You know?
Yeah.
Because those like negative plaques and the nameplates and all that,
that is fascinating.
Somebody's gonna teach you how to do that shit, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just something you tinker around with and figure out.
Yeah, I'm not messing around on PowerPoint here in the 2020s, right? Messing with fonts. And very interesting that George de Mohrenschildt was part of his font experiments, or whatever you want to call it. And of course, I think he met him in like end of '62. I think that's when J. Walton Moore asked him to keep an eye on Oswald, and they started helping Lee and Marina. I don't know. It seems to me that they were trying to do some covering up after the fact with Michael Payne's camera. And but like you showed in the photo at the beginning, he had a few in different cases. And what, 3 binoculars? Why do you need 3 binoculars?
4 binoculars.
4.
And a telescope.
Yeah, and that light, right? That light, like that big flash bulb thing, I think, as well.
Well, later Ruth said that Ansco flash was hers.
Oh, right. Just as she said when
the Paynes were there when these guys are going through the garage. Gus Rose said all this shit was found in Oswald's sea bag. You know what I mean? Because when they moved Oswald's shit from New Orleans, right? They packed it all in Ruth Payne's car, and Ruth and Marina took it back to Ruth's house. Oswald stayed in New Orleans and then went to Mexico and all that jazz. And when he came back, he didn't move into Ruth Payne's house. So now, if you're packing stuff to take with you, and the Oswalds didn't have a lot, it wasn't like they had a ton of shit. Everything they owned could fit in Ruth Payne's station wagon. Okay. Now, and if that's all you got, chances are a lot of that stuff is going to be in suitcases or bags or whatever. They're not just going to have loose shit sitting around everywhere. And obviously, the easiest way to pack and unpack is to put everything in a bag, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like Oswald's photographic loose in the back of the station wagon, and they unpacked it and just threw it all around in drawers in Ruth Payne's garage. You know, I'm sure Oswald was very anal about his shit and probably packed it all in bags and told them, don't fucking open them. Don't go through my shit. Don't touch my stuff, you know?
Yeah. No, he was a pack rat, and Hancock and Boylan definitely established that. He kept everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
So whatever they found and attributed to Oswald was more than likely Oswald's and not Ruth Payne's. And like I said, Ruth Payne and Michael Payne were there watching the cops go through all this shit. And if any of it was theirs, they likely would have spoke up and said, hey, that's mine.
Yeah. Yeah. You would think so. You would
Yeah.
think so. Especially without a warrant the first day on the 22nd, right? You definitely see that.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know who wrote that handwritten letter. We give permission, blah, blah, blah. That was in the first picture you showed. But yeah, and just how he knew to show up at that time is interesting as well, right? Michael Payne, that is.
Yeah, I think it was H.W. Hill. He was the property inventory guy, or maybe it was.
Yeah.
Rusty
No,
Ray.
he signed that thing at the bottom of the Beckley thing under debris, I think, in the first thing he showed.
Yeah.
I think that was Hill. Yeah. Timothy Ryan might have the comment of the night. So says James Smith. So many cameras, so little time. Yeah, it seems to me, Rob, like I said before, that they're trying to almost tie up loose ends by maybe Ruth, claiming it was Michael's later on, and that whole gluing the shutter shut or whatever they did with the Minox and that's in the archives now. I don't know, man. It's crazy, but cray
For sure.
Yeah.
But we go from crazy to crazier. So Joe, if you would like to go ahead and present your topic.
Sure. So of course, Rob was preparing this segment on the cameras, and as I usually do, I try to think of a topic that can that is related
to supplement.
Yes, that supplements Rob's topic, and it wasn't my memory or a good idea. It was actually because it was a recent email that was sent out, I think 6 days ago, Rob, that brought my attention to another camera and another rumor that is floating around that has to do with the Babushka lady, Rob, and her allegedly using a, quote, gun camera, aka a gun that is that's made to look like it is a camera, but that can fire some shots. And I figured we dive into this a little bit. What do you say?
Yes, let's.
So before I get into this email here, I figured I'd do a couple slides on the Babushka lady. This is a frame from the much more it might have been a film. I don't know if it's a still or not, but you can see the Babushka lady on the far right here with my little red arrow. That's very obvious, pointing down to her. She has a dress kind of around the knees and a type of pink scarf on, okay? And this is another, this is a still of the Zapruder frame 285 of the Babushka lady when she has the camera up to her face, okay? And as I was looking at this, Rob, one thing came to mind.
What's that?
She can't be a good photographer. She has maybe 20, 30 feet on her left, yet she is filming over the shoulder of, I believe it's Charles Grem. I believe that's it. Say it again.
Barem,
right.
Brem,
yes. And
why
lot
would
of
you get up there beside them so nobody's in your freaking way?
Right. And if you look at where she's aiming, she's almost aiming towards the driver, who was kind of looking backwards at that point. I think you have JFK kind of choking on the
Well, maybe she's leading her camera a little bit to take a picture, like
possibly.
Being target, you kind of get ahead of it a little bit,
But Rob, if you are a decent photographer, as in this isn't your first time taking pictures, why not move a couple of feet to her left or right looking at this picture to get a clearer shot? It screams to me that she might not be the most experienced photographer, or is there something else going on? I do not know. So we will get into it, I promise. But before we do, I figured I'd bring up a video of the Mark Bell film.
Don't have any music, does it?
It does not. It is.
Okay, just checking.
I double checked that. Yes.
I gotta watch you.
Yeah, I know. And this is a credit of the JFK Assassination Forum YouTube channel, which has a bunch of good pictures. So I'm going to play a couple seconds of this. I'm going to pause it and we'll give some commentary. But this is one of the films that films the Babushka lady reacting or not reacting to the shots when the motorcade passes her. Right? You see Jackie's hat there. All right, they're about to make that left. Oh, shots. Okay. This is the Babushka lady, right here.
Yeah.
And a lot of speculation has been talked about of why everyone else was on the ground and why she didn't respond to the shots, right? So
maybe she didn't hear him because her babushka was covering her ears.
Yeah.
She had her babushka on a little tight.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. You never know. I mean, could she have been slow? Could she have been used to gunshots? Could she have not even realized what was going on? You never know, right?
Yeah, but everybody else, you can see dark complected man hitting the ground across the street.
Yeah.
And a little bit before this, you can see Brim and his son already on the ground.
Yeah, I think that's right to her right there.
No, they was to her left. If you go back a little bit, hey,
Okay.
see him?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So she doesn't react, which is a big point of contention we're going to get into. There she is again, right? As the motorcade continues to pass by her, some more cops on motorcycles. And then she waits for, well, I'll wait for a second before I get into that. But I am going to pull up the email that was sent within a week ago and talk about a theory that Babushka lady possibly had a camera gun. And yeah, I mean, we might debunk it. We might not. We probably will. Let me see it here. So, sorry, just bring up this email here. So this was sent by a researcher. Where's the fuck is that? Okay. Jeffrey Sundberg, and I am not 100% familiar with him or his background, but essentially, he quotes a book on the assassination attempts of French, I guess, Prime Minister, technically, Charles de Gaulle in the 1960s. And apparently there were many, many, many attempts on his life, right? So I'm going to skip a little further into the email. To my surprise, especially given the other event of the day, the Target de Gaulle book contains a chapter attached, I'll get into it, of the May 1963 attempt to kill Charles de Gaulle in Athens that employed an OAS invention, a camera gun that held 6 bullets, each tipped with cyanide to chemically amplify the mechanical kinetic lethality. I said that Apart from the mention of the gun camera in the attachment, readers from Demare Plume book will find an incidental second mention of the camera gun on page 241. Blah blah blah. As students of the JFK assassination and the RFK assassination, we mentally turn over scenarios to explain how shooters would get into and out of the TSPD without being remembered by the people who worked there, or how a gun was fired into the back of RFK's head in the middle of a crowd when his ostensible assassin was always many feet to his front. While he goes into the RFK thing. One should also note that a camera gun features in Mary Haverstick's A Woman I Know, the commendable and eye-opening book about Jerry Cobb, the, quote, twin sister in aviation of June Cobb, and the person whose signature seems to be identical to that of the Jerry who signed off on the QJ Win material. Haverstick devotes a number of pages to her path-breaking visual analysis of the Babushka lady and demonstrates the oddness of this assassination figure, who seems not interested in getting a good frontal photograph of a smiling JFK and Jackie as they approached, but rather hid behind Charles Brem, even when she had physically prepared herself to train her camera on the back of Kennedy after he had passed. During the shooting, Haverstick notes, Babushka didn't flinch, didn't drop, didn't shelter, and neither reported herself as a witness to the authorities, nor was ever sought by them, despite her possession of a camera being sought on film by other cameras, aka other people caught her taking film or pictures. The preoccupation with Kennedy's rear suggested to Haverstick a gun hidden inside the camera, and she pointed to other documented guns hidden in canes, lipstick cases, or cigarette packets, etc. With the documented OAS possession of a gun camera 6 months before Dallas, Haverstick's gun camera transcends the realm of the conjectural into the realm of the possible. Of course, the second objection to Haverstick's scenario is that a bullet trajectory from the Babushka accords poorly with the actual wound pattern as now so well and so compellingly and cogently documented in the mature analysis of Doctors Mantic and Chusser. But I personally question whether Babushka's putative payload was not the bullet portion of the OAS cyanide tip bullets, but rather the cyanide supplement. Is there any chance that the physical residue of the Babushka's camera pointing effort found itself in the authentic metal shrapnel fragments embedded orthogonally on Kennedy's exterior skull near the cowlick, the troubling to explain, but which form the basis for the subsequent superimposed 6.5 millimeter circular object that Dr. Mantic's dosimeter provided to be physically preposterous darkroom confection. So that kind of lost me a little bit, Rob. But I think Haverstick goes into some of the fragments in Kennedy's skull and whether that could have been the result of a shot so close as like from a camera gun.
Well, she was on the wrong side of the road, for one. I mean, it would have made sense for her to be on the other side of the road. And if, JFK is a target on the side she was on, you had to get through Nellie and Jackie.
Yeah. And of course, the head would, of course, go forward, and the Babushka lady would have been somewhat to the rear, right? So,
well, depending on when she shot, if she shot as they were approaching her, she would have to get through Nellie and Jackie. Now, if she waited until after the card passed, still, you would have had a pretty, depending on the bullet, and the capacity of the gun, but who knows?
Yeah.
Probably would have been a facial blowout or something.
Yeah. So I'm just going to read one more little sentence here. In a side note of greater seriousness, I have to ask myself whether the American intelligence agencies, relying upon the technical expertise of their brains trust in the well-funded Technical Services Division, shout out David Christ, who recently got out of Cuba a few months after this, had not already long preceded France's captain another assassination attempt. So, and this is, let me bring up my PowerPoint here, the attachment to this email. And, I thought maybe that they were going to quote this email, some OAS primary resource documents, Rob. Unfortunately, they just quoted a book, and the book is named Target de Gaulle, Charles de Gaulle. And of course, it highlights the 31 attempts of the life of the French president. But on chapter 32, Rob, it's a very short chapter. It says a lethal camera, okay? And this is a little clip from that by Pierre Demarte. I hope I'm saying that right. As so it happened, for some days, the two had been discussing an invention developed by Captain Miman, who was a good technician and practical improviser. His idea was to insert a 6.35 millimeter barrel into a camera. To the outward eye, the camera would look perfectly normal, and it could even continue to take photographs. Though an aperture below the lens, however, 6 bullets impregnated with cyanide could be fired at any target selected. Condé had shown very great interest in this device. I think that's an OAS guy who was trying to kill de Gaulle. It could be used by a tourist without attracting attention. Okay. De Gaulle's visit to Athens was an ideal opportunity for him to succeed where he had failed at a prior assassination attempt, right? He immediately passed word to his superiors who gave their agreement, and Miman started to construct the camera gun apparatus that very day. For good measure, he even made 2 models. Okay. Dejectedly, he watched the triumphal arrival of General de Gaulle, who passed within 12 feet of him. This is in Athens, Greece. Condé could only press the release of his camera, thus at least obtaining a historic photograph of de Gaulle offering an ideal target. Not until the afternoon did he receive his papers and money enabling him to return to Brussels, where he could blah, blah. The photographs were considered excellent. They included one of de Gaulle standing in an open car, saluting the crowd and presenting his august profile at a distance of 12 feet. A sitting target, even for a moderate marksman. Okay. The photographs and the doctored camera, right, the camera made into a gun, were placed in a suitcase belonging to one of the members of the Brussels Resistance Council. A few days later, this man, of course, Rob, was getting bored like all the Brussels exiles and decided to go out and get drunk. And in the night of the suburbs, music, girls, and whiskey quickly had their effect on him, and a brawl started in a nightclub. The police ended up arresting him and then searching his apartment and seizing this camera gun, Rob, of course, without it ever being used or without it ever being photographed. So, what are we to think of this camera gun? So, what do we do these days? Well, we ask AI, don't we?
Real quick, Joe. Thank you, John. Just
Yep.
became a covert operator. Excellent, sir. Welcome aboard.
Yes.
Welcome to the member club.
Yes. You will have many Fire members only episodes
Yes.
to catch up on. And we go crazy there. Things we can't say on the normal YouTube interwebs. So, okay. So back to the theory. And this is what Mary Haverstick says in her book, is that the Babushka lady, and I'm not, she has a great book about Jerry and June Cobb, right? This is separate from that theory. This is,
and she admits it is her, and it's just a theory.
Right.
There's nothing she's basing this on other than the fact that it could possibly feasibly be done this way.
Right. Yes, and part of her biggest suspicion is that the Babushka lady didn't flinch, drop, or shelter, and that she never came, presented herself to the authorities, or allegedly the authorities never looked for her. But I'm going to get to some of that in a second here. But let's see. So I asked Grok. Okay, this is funny. So I asked Grok, and I was like, what's up with a camera gun in the 1960s? And was it used to as an attempt to possibly assassinate de Gaulle by the OAS? And this is what Grok has to say, Rob. Grok couldn't find an image of an OAS camera gun specifically linked to the 1963 assassination attempt on Charles de Gaulle. The OAS was involved in several attempts on de Gaulle's life, most notably the 1962 Petit Clamart attack. But there's no documented evidence of a, quote, camera gun being used in these events. The sources described the use of machine guns, submachine guns, and automatic weapons during the 1962 ambush, with no mention of a disguised camera weapon. The idea of a camera gun might stem from fictional depictions like Frederick Forsyth's, quote, The Day of the Jackal in 1971, which is inspired by the Petit Clamart attack, but includes creative elements not present in the historical record. AKA, the film is not 100% accurate. In the novel and its 1973 film adaptation, the assassin uses a custom rifle, not a camera gun. Yes, and I did search for that. So I asked a little bit more about it, and I said, so what type of camera guns were around in the 1960s, right? So Grok said they couldn't find a verified image of any, but a KGB 22 caliber disguised camera gun in the available sources or through a direct search. The concept of a 22 caliber, quote, Stinger gun disguised as a camera is mentioned in some contexts, notably on the Deadliest Warrior Wiki, I'll get to that in a second, which describes it as a single-shot firearm where the bullet breaks through the camera's lens with optics used for sighting. It references a 1946 attempt on Olga Rocco using a shotgun camera, but doesn't provide a specific image, okay? So, again, we still can't find an actual photo of a gun like this, but we'll get there. I have a couple coming up here. Other sources like Business Insider and Smithsonian Magazine showcase KGB spy gadgets, including cameras hidden in cigarette packs or purses, but none explicitly depict a 22 caliber firearm disguised as a camera. The closest visual reference are to other disguised KGB weapons like the poison pistol in a cigarette pack or a lipstick gun, which doesn't match the camera gun description. The lack of a clear image may stem from the rarity of such devices, their classification, or their fictional exaggeration in media like the Day of the Jackal movie and book. Since no authentic image is available, Grok is offering to generate an artistic representation of what a KGB 22 caliber camera gun might look like based on the described design, which is awesome. E.g., a compact camera with a lens concealing a barrel. Would you like me to proceed with generating that image? What do you think I sent to Grok, Rob?
Of course, yes.
Proceed, Grok. So first, I found an image of the KGB single-shot 22 caliber Stinger gun. And Rob, this is not very subtle.
No, I mean, yeah. From the offset, it could appear if one wasn't looking too closely at you that you were just simply filming. The butt gives it away. That big wooden stock just kind of gives it away just a little bit.
Yeah. Not to mention, Rob, it's a single shot and it fires through the lens, which cannot help accuracy, right? And it classifies this as a mid-range, which I guess if you look through the sight, pretend you're taking a picture, it might have a somewhat decent range, but for me, it wouldn't be my preferred assassination weapon.
No.
Standing on either side of Elm Street.
This is a disguised movie camera, like not a regular film camera.
Yeah.
This is a moving picture camera.
Yeah. And one shot. I mean, you have no other, and a moving target, you have no other opportunity. I mean, that's a stretch for me. So what did Grok come up with? Actually, the one on the left looked like something you showed before, right?
Yeah.
And on the right, I guess this is based on that 6.35 millimeter thing that the OAS allegedly, based on this random book, created to kill de Gaulle. But I mean, that looks better than the previous one. But interesting that AI came up with this picture based on the description, right?
Yeah.
Kind of cool. Yeah. And I know someone earlier in the chat said, can we use AI to help with photo identification? I think the comment was referring to Prayer Man. And yeah, if you have the money and technical ability to do that, yeah. Rob and I might not.
Well, I found, Joe, an actual toy from 1965.
Okay.
And let me pop it up here. This is, remember, this is a toy, folks. This is not real, but it's a toy camera gun. Check this out.
Okay.
Now, from this side, it looks legit, right? Looks like a little shitty movie camera, right?
Yeah.
From the other side, it's, of course, Agent Zero movie shot, right? And it looks a little bit more sinister on this side. And it has a barrel that you can pull out and extend. Right?
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Now, remember, this is a toy that was released in 1965. Made from metal and plastic, of course. But you could see conceptually how something like this could work. The problem is the Babushka lady had a box camera, not unlike something like the Imperial Reflex. Now, if you believe Beverly Oliver, she had a Yashica model movie camera that hadn't been released to the public yet, that did not look anything like a box camera.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if you look close up at some of the images of the Babushka lady, you can clearly see that what she had was a box type looking camera, not a motion picture, not a moving picture camera.
Right.
So I don't know if Alex sent you any shots of the camera that the Babushka lady actually had, but this would be a good time to show them if he did.
Yeah. He sent me a couple pictures I'm going to get into in a second that are very interesting. But before I do, I'm going to share last thing that Grok said about why no camera gun and OAS plots. Number one, practicality. The OAS favorite reliable, high-powered weapons for ambushes, not single-shot disguised devices. right? Would be more of like a spy one-shot DL, right? Type of.
Well, look, man, if you can turn a tube of lipstick into a gun or a pack of cigarettes into a gun, you could easily configure into a box camera the elements of a gun.
100%. 100%.
Just the fact that we don't have any available for pictures doesn't mean that they didn't exist.
100%. I can't agree more. And that's going to segue into the next point, availability. Custom camera guns were rare, expensive, and typically restricted to intelligence agencies, aka they would have had to make them custom,
right,
for a certain operation.
Yeah, Q would have had to make them.
Yes. But then I found something very interesting on the Babushka lady, because we know, Rob, there's a bunch of theories whether she was a Rothschild or a CIA agent. I know your podcast partner, Doug, has an interesting theory he told me about a year ago, but he told me not to tell anyone, so I won't say anything about it. But let's see what Gary Mack had to say to the AARB about the Babushka lady. Okay. Mac, what I have found living here in Dallas and talking with people is that there are a lot of people in Dallas area who, for one reason or another, just would prefer not to come forward. I learned a story just a few weeks ago. This is a few weeks ago in November 94, right? So October 94, right? Somewhere in that range. A retired Kodak executive remembered that while they were processing Abraham Zapruder's film out in the Dallas office out by Love Field, that a woman had come in, and this woman in her late 30s, and again, Babushka lady is, I think Beverly Oliver was 17 at the time. People think Babushka lady is in her 30s, if not 40s, okay?
Or older, yeah.
Yeah, a brunette who had taken a picture of the assassination scene, and her picture was the first one out of the processor. And they were working on this because it was quicker to do stills than it was moving film.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't catch her name, but he stood next to her while she was explaining her story to some of the federal investigators who were already there, right, monitoring the Zapruder film processing. She was running from Main Street up to Elm Street across the grass, realized she wasn't going to get there close enough, stopped and took a picture. In the foreground were some people standing on the south curb of Elm Street. The Kennedy limousine was directly behind them. Directly behind the limousine was the book depository building. When the picture came out of the processor, the very first thing they noticed was that the exposure was terrific, but the focus was way, way off. The picture was virtually useless, and the lady was told that. Well, she apparently went home, and whether anyone even got her name or that is unknown. If the story is true, and I have no reason, Gary Mack says, to doubt it, the man, we sought him out. He did not seek us out today. If we could locate that slide, and this is a color slide, computer enhancement can return it literally to almost the best clarity you could have had at the time. So Gary Mack is saying that this alleged Babushka lady who was getting her film developed at around the same time the Zapruder film was so off, and that brings me back, Rob, to my initial observation of her not being the greatest photographer, was so off and so out of focus that none of the authorities gave it much attention. If the story is true, and of course, back in those days, nothing like that existed. They're talking about computer enhancement. The Kodak executive's name is Jack Harrison. Jack said they were pushing the technicians very hard to do whatever you can to sharpen the picture and improve it. But at the end, they just said, hey, there's nothing we could do with this picture. So here is a woman with a potentially important photograph. And Rob, remember where she's facing. She's facing towards the grassy knoll, right?
Yeah.
She's facing literally towards the grassy knoll. So here is a woman with a potentially important, I'll add, potentially groundbreaking photograph, a still photograph. What is especially interesting to me is that from the description of her position, what the picture shows, she may very well be the real Babushka lady. This is an area in the research community that is very controversial. You said that right at this point. And without going into any great detail, I do not believe that Beverly Oliver is the Babushka lady. Or let me rephrase that she certainly could have been, but the rest of the story, her story, is a fabrication. This is my personal belief based on the work I've done. What has happened, though, Gary continues, apparently, is the story from Jack Harrison that this woman existed. She has a photograph that could have some important answers. It is probably sitting in a shoebox somewhere in her closet or her grandchildren's or sons or daughter's closet, and they have no idea. And how do you find a woman like that? How do you get people to come forward? Maybe your work of the ARB will do that. So what he's saying is that because her pictures were so bad that no one paid any attention to it, and she just kind of waved it off, and it's sitting somewhere randomly.
That certainly sounds much more plausible than
Yes.
the alternative theory.
Yes, I 100% agree with that.
This woman is trying to catch up to the limousine, and she stops at the last second, points and shoots, doesn't give the camera time to focus.
Yeah. Occam's razor, it makes the most sense by far. And she didn't know she has anything, but it gives me hope that, some people in Dallas or her ancestors have this photo somewhere, and with AI, it could possibly be refocused.
Depends on how bad it is, but
right.
Whether or not you'd ever get a contingency to agree on anything concerning that photo.
Right. And would it even show any part of the picket fence where you could possibly tell anything? Of course, that's all speculation. Who knows? But
I agree with James, Joe. Awesome find, buddy.
Yeah, so essentially this email has been making the rounds, and we know, some crazy theories make the rounds now and then, and not to impugn Miss Haverstick's work in regards to, June Cobb or anything, but it's a stretch for me that this woman who couldn't even time her photograph and was somehow involved in the assassination. So I'm going to follow up on your comment earlier, Alpha 66 Mike. Did I consult Mr. Alex Harris with this information before the episode? What do you think, Rob?
Well, I already know the answer, Joe. It wouldn't be fair to me to speculate.
Yes.
That was my idea to tell you to get in touch with
I guess. So here we have this is the photographs of a Dallas Times Herald photographer named William Allen. And again, Alex Harris is really just such a great source when it comes to this, because I just told him what I was looking for, and he goes, "Oh yeah, William Allen. He came into Dealey Plaza at around 1240. He took 150 photographs, and it's all over the place. This is," he said, allegedly around photo 80 of his 150 shot roll. He had a few rolls of film, right? You could see on the left here, Rob, Babushka lady, right? I'm circling her. And on the right side, here we go. Here, Babushka lady, which is a more further out shot, right? And she has crossed Elm Street. And you might ask yourself, Rob, what time is this photo? Well, Alex had actually synced up other photographs from different photographers from the right here that looked towards the clock on the top of the TSBD. 12:40 is the timestamp on this. So about 10 minutes after the assassination, the Babushka lady has crossed Elm Street. She's now on the other side. She went up kind of with the crowd towards the grassy knoll and then came back down a little bit. It's about 12:40. It doesn't seem to me, if you're really involved in a plot in the assassination, to hang around at this point. There's chaos everywhere. You use that opportunity, if you're even a decent operator, covert operator, pun intended, to slip away, right?
You don't carry your camera in your hand like that for the world to see. You probably put it in an inner pocket or something.
Yeah. So yeah, why hang around unless you're? I mean, I guess you could make an argument. She's photographing the aftermath. I don't see that if you're part of the plot. You get out of there during the chaos, right?
Definitely not a camera gun, but yeah.
So I want to thank Mr. Alex Harris for sending me some of this stuff, and it's interesting because we touched on this a little in the members only. I think you got this email and you forwarded it to me about this. Coming up again with the camera gun, and it's been an email and it's had an education forum thread, and I thought it would go well with your segment of exploring cameras to kind of debunk the fact that I think I am 99.9% sure that the Babushka lady did not have a camera gun, and that most likely she was just some random person that probably didn't want to get involved in shit. Developed her film. It was probably terrible, and it's probably sitting in some drawer in Dallas or Shreveport or somewhere, right? So interesting shit, right?
Totally.
Yeah. A lot of camera shenanigans going on for sure. I'm just going to catch up on some comments here.
Yes, sir.
Paula said earlier she got her bag just in time to bring it home. Oh no! Oh no!
Well, at least they didn't totally lose it altogether.
Yeah, that is true.
But
I'm sure all the either dresses or outfits she had planned for maybe a nice night out in New York City, she had to wear a "I Love NY" T-shirt. Right?
And a whole new wardrobe. She needed a whole nother suitcase to come back from New York with.
Hey, it's an excuse to shop, Paula.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
Take it.
Yeah. James says, so the inventor was OAS. It's referenced that the OAS had a gun like this. I couldn't find any.
Yeah, feasibly, again, you can make a camera, a box camera, into a gun. Anybody could.
Anyone. Yeah. And the email said the CIA would have been much more equipped to build a device like this than, say, French intelligence or
especially using a box camera. I mean, you could just gut the camera, stick a gun in the box, you know what I mean? Take the lens out and point it and shoot.
Right.
You don't have to make some crazy mechanical contraption, you know what I'm saying?
Rob, but how close would you have to be if you could, say, assume that Babushka lady had a camera gun? Say she's, 20, 30 feet away from the president as he passes by? One shot, a couple shots, maybe you say it's tipped with cyanide or whatever. Doesn't seem like the most efficient way.
No. I mean, I think that theory can pretty much be tossed aside relatively easily.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh, my God. My crooked wang is back, Joe. Look. Well, it's been months.
Oh, that was great.
Contrary to popular belief, it is not crooked. It is straight as an arrow. It's not banana shaped. It is straight as an arrow.
Yeah.
Like the mighty hammer of Thor.
NK says outlier theory is that she was Marita Lorenz. Well, Marita Lorenz never said that, for what it's worth. Or, I mean, I'm sorry, her daughter never said that.
I think that's crazy talk.
Yeah.
Because I think her story is they took her back to Miami. She didn't hang around in Dallas.
Right. Well, if you believe her story, everyone was transferred, in cars, not knowing their target, giving it to them at the last second type of thing, right?
Yeah, but they sent her back, according to her story.
Right. Yeah.
Shaped like Elm Street. Very sharp left turn. But you know what? They can still hit that spot.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? When it comes to the Babushka lady, I was thinking about this. What is the percentage of people we know and can identify and deal with positive? It has to be like 98%. Almost everyone we can identify, right? You look at Perman. You look at Perman, the people on the steps, and the publishing ladies, the witnesses, the people, Gordon Arnold. I mean, you could, but there's going to be a couple that you're not going to be able to identify just statistically, right? And I think a lot of our conspiratorial and curious mind and our imaginations go to like, whoa, what if she was this? What if she was a Rothschild? What if she had some super secret gun that has never been photographed? I'm not ruling it out, but it's a stretch for me,
Yes, Tiny, resend that email. I don't remember that at all. Dark complected man wearing 2 cameras at Parkland. Just resend that email, yes, please.
I think I know that picture, but you know what I mean? Like the mind, when there's a mystery and you can't identify someone, like the imagination just goes crazy, right? And I think the result is these type of theories. And the more Occam's razor explanation is she was just a random girl or lady, and her pictures weren't anything at the time, and no one paid attention to her. And you can't blame her for not coming forward and getting involved in this whole mess either. So.
Yeah, I mean that's I hadn't heard that story before, and that's an interesting one for sure. I know everybody hates on Gary Mack for being, turning into this debunking lone nutter in his later years, but he did some good work in the '80s, and he was legit there for a while, and he was in the right place to hear a lot of these stories, in Dallas, and certainly sounds like a more plausible scenario than a lot of the other Babushka lady theories that we run into, Joe.
100%. So that is all I have, sir. And thank you again to Alex Harris for giving some context into this matter.
Yes, or him giving some context to this matter.
Did I say her?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I think I was like clearing my throat.
It's debatable.
He does have long hair. No, but we love Alex, and thank you again, sir.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Thank you, sir. Yes. All right, folks, that is the end of this epically long Lone Gunman podcast episode. Number 342, the mini cameras of Lee Harvey Oswald. And thank you guys for hanging out with us and interacting with the show. We always love it so much. You guys rock. You definitely add something to the show. And we hope you enjoyed. And I guess Joe is tracking down Ruby to do some dancing.
She was sleeping, so I got a treat to lure her.
Got a sweet talker.
Yes.
All right, Ruby. It's time to dance, girlfriend.
Here's a treat so you can dance.
Dino, bring your ass in here. Thank you, Southwest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brian.
The greatest lies are told in the name of truth. The greatest crimes are committed in the name of justice. The quotation is Jim Garrison's. It could be used for him or against him in this strange case. Good night.
Yes, Mr. Thundernuts, good night. Fell asleep. Ah, poor fellow. Thank you, Paula. James, Randall, Tiny.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend, and special shout out to the mothers and the grandmothers in our chat. Hope everyone has a great Mother's Day weekend.
Happy Mother's Day to all mothers out there and those people with mothers who are no longer with us, who can appreciate their moms out there. So shouts out.
Yes. And cat mothers like Sally. I think she said she had 6 earlier.
Good Lord, crazy cat lady.
She just had babies. That's what she said.
Why don't you ship one over here in a box?
So your kitty can have her friend.
Yes, Kitty needs a wife or a man, actually.
Yeah. And members, we will see you Wednesday with some fuego. Rob teased. I don't even know what he has coming up with, but
a bunch of New Orleans shit, buddy. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff, if you know what I'm saying. A lot of gayness. We'll leave it at that.
Are we going to get an accent or two?
Yes, you will.
Oh,
yes.
If that's not a reason to sign up to be a covert operator, I do not know.
That's right.